It's the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Robert Williams, not on the injury report, not one of those game time decisions, although he sort of probably is a game time decision. But Brad Stevens said he dressed and went through kind of the walkthrough portion of practice, didn't go through some of the active drills. They're keeping him off of his feet, but he's not on the injury report. So the anticipation is that unless something goes terribly wrong overnight, that he's just going to deal with it and he's going to go. Now, what does that mean for starting, not starting? That'll be an interesting adjustment to see if Brad Stevens just says, we're going to start with our best unit. And even though we might not be able to play Robert Williams as much, we're going to go with it. We're going to say, we're going to start with him, and however long he can tolerate it, then we're going to go a different direction. The question is then, what direction do they go? It'll probably be Tristan Thompson, but I'm kind of curious to see if the Celtics go a different route with their backup center. And it may depend on what Brooklyn does. And that's something I'm going to get into in the next segment. But part of that discussion is, what does Brooklyn do with its five? And if they start Jeff Green, you can start Robert Williams. And if they start Jeff Green, then I'm okay with that. But who do you sub in? Who does Brooklyn sub in? So that's going to be something to watch for at least the beginning of game two, some of that back and forth between Steve Nash and Brad Stevens. The bigger story, and we talked a little bit to Evan Fournier after the practice, is how do the Celtics get going? And Evan Fournier was asked a couple of questions about this and basically said, quote, "It's all on me. I have to do a better job finding my rhythm, finding my opportunities within the offense, within the flow of the offense, maybe more active on the boards so that we can push the ball in transition, just find ways to help." So he knows that he needs to do more. Like I've said before, and I've written on Boston Sports Journal, 3 for 10 from the field is just not going to get it done. 3 for 10 is first of all, the 3 is terrible. Can't just have 3 makes from Evan Fournier in a game. And secondly, the 10 might be worse because you need Evan Fournier to be aggressive. So how do you get Evan Fournier to be aggressive? I'm trying to piece together some of these things. Brad Stevens said the other day after the game, we're going to rely on corporate knowledge, maybe dig into the past to find ways to attack them better. So what corporate knowledge, what in the past can the Celtics do? I think that we might see a couple of old Gordon Hayward plays. And this might be a great opportunity to run Fournier as the primary ball handler and start Tatum and Kemba in a different position off the ball and have them all kind of interact and play together. So one thing I like to do, it's a common play, but the Celtics used it a ton with Gordon Hayward. I would not be surprised to see what's called a horn set, which is something I've talked about in the past. I did a video on my personal YouTube channel years ago about the horn set. It's called the horn set because it starts off with guys on each elbow. It's just like 2 horns, right? And they usually see the hook 'em horns kind of logo like that. That's a hand signal. You might see a little horns in there. And what happens is Evan Fournier starts with the ball and Tatum, Kemba Walker, maybe somebody else. One of those guys starts at one elbow and the other starts at the other elbow. Now, you can run this with Fournier as the ball handler, and you can run a ton of different actions off of horns. And it's like I said, it's a very common play that the Celtics have used, that every basketball team, basically every basketball team, has some version of a horn set in their playbook somewhere. And why I like it and why I like it for this scenario is because you've got those 3 guys, you can have any number of screens set. Screens across, you can dump it in. Fournier can dump it into Jayson Tatum and run off of him for a handoff. You can dump it into Tatum, and Tatum can get a screen, a cross screen, and he can do any number of things. You can run what's known as an elevator screen for a guy coming up. Fournier can go off the ball. Those two guys can screen for whomever. Maybe you start Kemba in the corner, and you can run an elevator screen. It's called elevator doors because the two guys kind of close behind. They kind of put their shoulders together, and the guy runs through the screen. You can do any number of things, and you don't even have to start Fournier with the ball in his hand. But why I think starting with the ball in his hand, it automatically gets him engaged, more aggressive. So I think the Celtics can turn to something like that and run a variety of things. And what they run off of that can be just the function of who's on the floor. How is Brooklyn playing? Are they switching? Are they still switching? What are they doing? So, but that's my guess. My guess is more of that involves Fournier. Now you can start with Fournier and the ball. You can start him as one of the horns on either elbow. He can be a guy that starts off in the corner, and you can run that elevator screen. If you start off with Tristan Thompson or another big up top, and you run your 4 and 5 out there, you start with maybe Smart is one of the guys that's on the horns, and you set that elevator door screen for Fournier coming up to get the ball. That's another option. Ways to involve him in that initial action, take advantage of those screens. That's what I'm looking for. So get Fournier going, dip into the Gordon Hayward playbook, and see what we can get. I think the Gordon Hayward playbook is the right playbook for Fournier, and I think that's going to get us to a place where at least he's going to be more involved. They got to get him more involved. 3 of 10 is not going to cut it. If they can get him shooting 15, 16, 17 shots and feeling comfortable doing it, then there's a strong chance the Celtics can actually be in position to steal one. Will they steal one? I don't know. Brooklyn's very good. They're pretty damn good. But you need Fournier and you need Kemba. And you can run this. The best part about this set is if you're involving all 3 of those guys, Tatum, Kemba, and Fournier, they're just going to play off of each other. There's going to be opportunities for all of those guys.